It started innocently enough like any other evening. The sun was setting, casting a soft golden glow across the street. I had just returned home from work, exhausted from the grind, but as soon as I parked my car and stepped out, I felt it. There was something off about the air that night, a strange electric tension that I couldn't shake. And it was coming from next door. I'd never been particularly close with my neighbor, but I had always found her intriguing. There was something about her, something just different. She had this air of mystery surrounding her. You know the type. The woman who never fully opens up, the one who always keeps you at arm's length, even though she's right there in front of you. I had always been curious about her, but I respected her privacy until that night. That night was different. I had no idea that the events of that evening would completely turn my world upside down. You see, my neighbor, she wasn't just a quiet, reserved woman who lived in the house next door. No, she had secrets, dark secrets, and I was about to discover just how far she would go to protect them. As I walked up to my front door, I noticed her standing in her driveway, staring at me. At first, I thought she was just being friendly. Maybe she was just trying to be polite. But then her eyes locked onto mine, and I felt a chill run through me. Her gaze wasn't casual. It was intense, calculating, like she was sizing me up, trying to decide if I knew something I wasn't supposed to know. "Hi," she said, her voice calm, almost too calm. "You've been busy lately?" I hesitated. There was something about the way she asked the question that felt like more than a simple inquiry about my day. She already knew I'd been working late. It wasn't just a casual question. It felt pointed. "I've been around," I replied, my tone neutral, unsure of where this conversation was going. She smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. It was something colder, something calculating. "Good. I've been meaning to ask you, have you ever noticed anything strange around here?" I felt my pulse quicken. Something in her voice told me that this was no ordinary conversation. "Strange? What do you mean?" She glanced over her shoulder, as if making sure no one was listening, before she leaned in closer. Her eyes flicked nervously, then returned to mine. "Don't trust what you see. Not everything is as it seems." The words she spoke were like a warning, and they hit me harder than I was ready for. I wanted to laugh it off, to pretend like it was just another bizarre comment from a strange neighbor. But something told me this was more than that. Something told me that behind those cold eyes was a truth so dark it could tear everything apart. As I stood there, trying to process her words, I felt a sinking feeling in my gut. What was she trying to say? What did she know that I didn't? Why did I feel like I was on the edge of discovering something? Something dangerous? I had to know more. And so, I began to watch her. The next few days were a blur of strange encounters, each one making me more suspicious. Every time I saw her, I noticed little things, oddities that made me question everything I thought I knew about her. She would look over her shoulder more frequently, almost as if she was worried someone was following her. She always seemed to be in a rush. Her movements sharp, as if she was trying to outrun something or someone. I decided to dig deeper. I started by asking around the neighborhood. People were friendly enough, but no one seemed to know much about her. She kept to herself, and that was about it. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was hiding just beneath the surface. That feeling only intensified after I overheard a conversation between her and a man late one night. It was hard to make out the words, but I could tell it wasn't a friendly chat. There was an edge to the way they spoke, a tension that made my skin crawl. The man's voice was low, almost threatening, but she wasn't scared. If anything, she was angry, furious even. "You said you'd fix this," the man said. "You said everything would be fine." "I never promised you that," she snapped back. "I've done enough. If you don't like it, you can deal with the consequences." My heart skipped a beat. What had I just heard? Was she in trouble? Or was she the one causing it? I had no idea what this was about, but I knew one thing for sure. I was too deep now to back out. The next day, I saw her again, this time standing in her front yard, looking out toward the street. She caught my eye, and for a moment she didn't smile. Instead, she looked at me with those same calculating eyes. I could feel her assessing me again, wondering just how much I knew, wondering if I was getting too close to something that she didn't want uncovered. "Curiosity is a dangerous thing," she said quietly, her voice low. The words felt like a threat, and yet I couldn't help myself. I was drawn to her, drawn to the mystery that surrounded her. "I don't know what you're talking about," I said, trying to sound as casual as possible, but I knew I was fooling no one. She smiled that cold smile again. "You will," she said. "Sooner or later, you'll know everything." That night, I decided to get answers, no matter what it took. I waited until after dark. I knew she was usually out late, but I had no idea just how far this would go. I approached her house cautiously, creeping closer to the windows where I had seen her talking to that man before. My heart pounded in my chest as I crouched behind a hedge, careful not to make a sound. Through the crack in the window, I could see them again. The man was sitting at the kitchen table, his face tense with frustration. She stood across from him, her back straight, her arms crossed. It was clear they were in the middle of a heated discussion. "You're making a mistake," the man said, his voice tight with anger. "You can't just walk away from this. There's too much at stake." She leaned forward, her eyes hard. "I'm not afraid of you. Do what you will. You've had your chance." I was barely breathing. What was going on? Who was this man? What was their connection? And why did it seem like she was on the edge of losing control? But it wasn't until the man left, slamming the door behind him, that I realized the truth. My neighbor wasn't just hiding something, she was running from something. She was terrified, and whatever it was that she was so afraid of, it was only a matter of time before it caught up with her. I had to make a choice. Do I walk away and pretend I never heard any of this? Or do I dig deeper and uncover whatever dark secret she's hiding? The next day, I confronted her. There was no more pretending, no more beating around the bush. I needed answers. "I know you're hiding something," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I've seen the way you act. I've heard what you've said. I need to know the truth." She stared at me for a long moment, her face unreadable. Then finally she spoke. "You're right," she said softly. "There are things you don't understand. Things I can't explain. But you need to walk away, before it's too late." I didn't move. I didn't back down. "You're not the only one with secrets," she said. Her voice lower now, more dangerous. "But mine, they're more than you can handle." And just like that, I knew. I was no longer just a neighbor in her life. I had become part of her mystery, part of the web of lies and half-truths she had been spinning for so long. There was no turning back now. Whatever this was, it had just become my problem. But I wasn't ready to let it go. Not yet. I wasn't done uncovering the truth. Not by a long shot.